Hello folks, this is African Speak. My name is Robert Kabushenga and I am really excited to be talking to my guest today because he is, well, everything. And the subject that we're going to be talking about, if there is any person that everyone has demanded to hear from, it is him. The question of coffee, Uganda. And every time I have spoken about that subject, everyone has told me, please bring Mr. Andrew Rugasira. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Magezi Rugasira. Andrew, you're welcome.
Thank you, Robert.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being persistent.
You see, that is what coffee farmers do.
Yes.
First of all, it takes you 4 years
Yes.
to get anything out of a coffee tree. And then you have to wait for a return of about 20 years. So I was waiting for my time.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, Andrew, why I wasn't going to give up. Because if there is a Ugandan who combines 3 or 4 things, it is you. What are those 3 things? 1, you have done the coffee business. So you've been a coffee entrepreneur. Number 2, you are an intellectual, somebody who has engaged in policy debates and therefore has been able to look at this question from that side as well. And the third one is as a person who has dealt right across the coffee value chain and you have lived the life. So when the whole debate about coffee started in Uganda, people said, we've listened to everyone. Now bring us Andrew. I guess it comes from the great African story, which is something I would like you to talk to today. But the first really personal thing that I've always wanted to ask you as Andrew, how did you arrive? You of all people, the background that I know you for, at least me, I have the excuse. I mean, my grandfathers were growing coffee.
Yeah.
We used to go home during school holidays and would participate in picking coffee. You are as urban and as urbane as they come. How did you come down to scaling the mountains of the Rwenzoris and Elgon looking for... What possessed you? Just take me back. How did you arrive at this as a business enterprise? What happened?
Well, firstly, I'm so happy to be conversing with you.
As guys like saying, the pleasure is all mine. So.
I think you're doing a lot of good work. I think a lot of change, a lot of innovation begins with conversations.
Yes.
Begins with us saying there must be a better way.
Yes.
And maybe we can do things differently to arrive at different and better results. And that's life, you know, conversations are very critical. So what you're doing, you might not realize it, but it's influencing, it's shaping, it's creating possibilities beyond the conversations that you're having. So I just wanted to, maybe people don't say that to you, but I wanted you to recognize the good work that's in having conversations with people.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think that's where the good African coffee conversation
Let's first go back. Let's tell people that actually in the earlier centuries when coffee first became commercial, it's what brought people together.
Absolutely.
in the Ottoman Empire,
Absolutely.
in the coffee houses.
Absolutely.
And it was even considered subversive coffee at some point. So
And
interesting.
even us, the coffee bean, you represented the establishment of covenants that people could do. So it's very relevant there. Yes.
Yes.
So I think the story begins with me thinking through. Business people
Yes.
are about trying to solve problems by creating opportunities.
True.
So you see a gap in the market for a product, and the businessman looks at ways he can creatively and innovatively bring different aspects of that product to the market. And here, it wasn't so much a coffee product or a coffee brand. It was surely we as Africans, we as Ugandans, can add value to this product and put it on the shelves. Because remember, I had done my university education in the UK.
Yes.
So I'm going to these supermarkets and I'm looking at the shelves, and there's all these coffees from Colombia, from Brazil, from wherever, Sumatra, and there's even coffee from Kenya and Tanzania. But none of that coffee
Yes.
is produced, is added value to in the markets where it's being sold. So as a student of economics, that first intrigued me, because we talked about manufacturing in Africa, value addition in Africa. Why can't Africa add value? And that was a debate in the 90s at the time.
Yes.
So that was something in my mind that continued to nag at me,
And this is your earlier life as an intellectual. Because I
I
remember.
don't even know why you're calling me an intellectual.
Because I found you sitting at Center for Basic Research. So what were you doing there?
A researcher,
There you go.
seeking information. I don't even know if I'm intellectual. Maybe I ask questions or I try to find answers to questions.
Okay, we shall say you're curious. That's it.
Curiosity is something.
Curiosity.
So
Yes.
actually, the beginning point was, can we add value to this coffee product?
Yes.
Number two, if we add value at source,
Yes.
do we have the quality? Do we have the provenance? Do we have the history that can be put together as a brand in this coffee product
So
and
we can
exported?
and then go into the market.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the easy bit. That was the easy bit. You can think about concepts and brands and how to put packaging together in an office, in your garage, in your bedroom, in your head.
Yes.
Okay?
And on your computer, you even begin to do the graphics.
Yes, computers. But then now, how do I operationalize this thing? I didn't know a thing about coffee. My ancestry is Kanungu.
Yes.
Okay, now we're growing a bit of coffee, but coffee has not been our key thing.
It was. We're a national park. Man.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the journey begins with an engagement in the commodities business. I had a commodities company
Yes.
that would bid for food supply to people like the World Food Program, maize and soya beans and that kind of thing. And I worked with a group of people who were experts in the procurement and the supply of that. The company was called Commodity International. So
Yes.
we did various commodities, CTI, Commodity Trading International.
Yes.
It is in Commodity Trading International that I learned about price volatility. When you don't add value to products. You'd buy maize at one price, you have a tender to fulfill.
Yes.
By the time you procure the maize, bag it, store it, do all the aflatoxin stuff, cleaning it up and making sure that it's the moisture content, all that stuff is according to the procurement tender, and supply it. Many times the price could shift because many other people in the market buying this commodity. A tender came up to supply Chiluba from Zambia. President Chiluba came here. You remember when he came here, was it the Smart Partnership?
So this is the early 2000s.
No, this is
1990.
Yes, late 1999 there, 2000.
And you are already thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
I sometimes wonder why you live in this part of the world. But anyway, let's because one of the persistent things that kept coming back to me when people asking to talk to you, they said that man was ahead of the times. That's why this.
Sometimes it's costly to be ahead of the time.
Exactly. You're a guinea pig. So you were telling me about Chiluba.
So Chiluba comes, Smart Partnership in Munyonyo.
That's 2001.
2001.
Yes.
Tells President Museveni, Zambia has a problem with maize. Okay, we need to import maize.
Right.
From Uganda. Uganda has a surplus of maize.
Yes.
So then, out of that comes this, not association, can I say? Yeah, an association of grain traders.
Yes.
You remember it was led by John Magne?
Yes.
Uganda grain traders.
Yes.
And then we were to put that volume of maize together and supply it. So Tanzania as a group, as one entity.
Yes.
So different suppliers came. We're one of the largest suppliers. I think we supplied something like 12,000 tons.
Wow.
By the time we got the maize on the trucks, through to Tanzania, through the port, I think, is it Mtwara? I
Yes.
forget the port, to Zambia,
Uh,
by road. That was where the lesson of price movement, price volatility, the price of the product when it reaches the buyer vis-a-vis when you bought it, the market dynamics that are happening in the procurement space. So people are buying, you're buying, there is a run on grain, people want to buy grain, there's a supply tender, supply contract with a fixed price.
which has already been agreed.
That was the wake-up call that there must be a way that is more viable or more profitable when you add value to a product than supply it in its raw form.
So let me take you back to ordinary people who are listening to you, because this is quite technical, price volatility. Just break it down. Why is that pricing structure a disadvantage? Why and how is it a disadvantage for those of us who produce and sell raw commodities?
Okay. Number one,
And why is it a bad business model?
it's a very good question. And I think if you look at the coffee business, the prices for coffee are largely established and fixed in the consumer countries,
Correct.
in the consumer economies.
Yes. So this is places which
New York
consume
New York market for Arabica, London for Robusta.
Yes.
Okay, it's a historical structure of,
Yes.
of the way trade is done. You know, tea exchanges in the Middle East. You know, you have coffee, Arabica in New York. You have Robusta in London. You have beef. You have all these markets that are traded as commodities. Oil pricing is controlled. That's how coffee is done. So what that does, because pricing is a function of demand and supply,
Yes.
the demand pressure, either pulling or pushing,
Yes.
affects the price of that commodity.
Yes.
The farmer in Ntungamo, in Bushenyi, in Elgon, in Kasese, still has the same acreage.
It doesn't change.
1 acre, 600 trees, you know, 3 to 5 kilos per tree, you know.
That's a good season, by the way. That's a good season.
That's a good season.
3 to 5 kgs, very good season. Yes.
1,800 kilos per acre to 3,000, something like that. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Now, that farmer's realities haven't changed.
No.
Same trees, same acreage,
Same
labor,
laborers, same food
input.
needs. Exactly.
But Starbucks, Nestle, Kraft, Sara Lee, Delamere, Chibo, all those guys, the volumes of coffee they buy will determine the pricing. So if the volumes of the buyers increase and supply has shrunk because of climate change and all these things, the price will go up. If there's a glut in the market, there's too much stock, people have hedged coffee for the future, etc., the price will go down. The price will remain stagnant. But this is a key thing for you to recognize, Robert.
Yeah.
These price changes don't necessarily translate to the farm gate price the farmer gets. You are a farmer.
Yes. So me sitting at, first of all, there are two things. Me sitting at my farm, I have no role or participation in the other fluctuations.
No.
So I am out of the equation.
Yeah.
Number two,
You're a participant in the market, but not an influencer. You can influence today by saying, I am differentiating myself. I am certifying my coffee. I have birds. I'm organic, bird friendly.
yes,
All these things.
I employ only women.
That kind of thing. They call it provenance. So it's like how wine is
Yes.
marketed. From Bordeaux, it's different from Shiraz and all these things.
Yeah.
Coffee is like that. You can add value, and that will add a premium somewhat, but it will also cost you.
Yes.
But it costs you to get certified organic. It costs you to get certified as
Before we even
rainforest.
get there, just to even guarantee the quality,
Exactly.
you have to be consistent with your farming practices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you really don't influence the end price.
Yes.
Okay? You don't influence the end price. Now let me I know you're going to ask that question. Let me even tell you something that's even probably I would say disappointing.
Yes.
Even when you add the value
Yes.
in Kampala
Yes.
for that coffee,
Yes.
it might not change the price you, the farmer, are getting.
First, park that issue because I am definitely going to come back to it. The question that was bothering me as you were explaining is that what makes it even worse for us is that we are unable to unite and affect the price by withholding supply. Number two, we don't have a local alternative because we are producing for an end user market. When I eventually was taught business at business school, the 5 forces of strategy, the buyers, it's a buyer's market. The buyer has a lot of power when they are buying the coffee. How does that, I mean, just the smallholder farmers that you've got, all, just help me understand the power dynamics of these buyers, because you've explained the market in setting the price. But I was told that in the world, actually, there are about not more than 9 big buyers.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of who those are and how powerful they are.
So there is a distinction between the buyers of green coffee,
Exactly.
okay, and the buyers of finished product, okay, the ones who roast that green coffee, make instant coffee, sell roast and ground coffee.
Let's call those the manufacturers.
The manufacturers.
Yes.
So in your green buyers, you have your e-coms.
In other words, the guys who buy from us as farmers.
Yes. Who have big, the trading houses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have your e-com, you have Neumann, you have Volcafe, you have Nestle.
Yes.
Starbucks is in there.
No,
These are the big commodities.
Traders.
The big traders. You have Louis Dreyfus.
Yes.
So these are the big guys who buy bulk. They buy the green coffee.
Yes.
From the middlemen or the farmers.
Yes.
Okay. Now then they sell it up chain to the Illy Coffee,
Yes.
to the Nestle's,
Yes.
to the Sierra Lee's, to the Procter and Gamble, to the Chibo, to the Delamere, to the Crafts, to Jacobs. I could go on.
Yes. In other words, the people who brand and sell to the consumer.
Those guys are big roasting, instant coffee manufacturing centers.
Yes.
In Europe,
Yes.
in Asia.
Yes.
To give you an example of what you are up against, Germany has 1,600 roasters.
Of what scale?
Small, medium, large.
Right.
Let me use it as an example to illustrate the commodity trade. In 2021, Germany imported 1.1 million tons of green coffee. Uganda exported about 420,000 tons of green coffee. Germany re-exported 400,000 tons of green coffee to Europe.
Wait. Whoa. You have taken me at full speed. Rewind and come again.
Okay. I'm showing you the dynamics of.
So Germany imported.
Germany is one of the largest importer of green coffee in Europe. Okay?
Yes.
Germany imported 1.1 million tons in 2021. Green coffee. Okay?
Yes.
They were the largest importer of green coffee.
In the world.
No, in Europe.
In Europe, sorry.
Okay? Simultaneously, they were the largest exporter of green coffee to Europe. So they import green coffee and then they re-export it, part of it, to other European countries. Why? First-class supply chain, first-class logistics, ports, road, rail. So people in other countries like
fa-
Poland.
First pause, because I want to tell you a story I ran into in the Netherlands. A guy told me, this guy, he said, our family has been in tomatoes for 300 years.
Yeah.
And he said, we've figured out with Philips how to produce tomatoes at the right light wattage.
Yeah.
But he told me that they are capable of exporting tomatoes to Panama City cheaper than the farmers of Panama can bring it from their mountains into Panama City. The tomatoes are grown and transported from Holland to Panama City, but it is still cheaper than a Panama farmer in the mountains can deliver. By the time I left, because guys talk about Netherlands being the big farming, whatever. The most prized possession of the Netherlands is Rotterdam, because it's a highly efficient harbor and has a very established logistics industry. So I really would like you to speak to that logistics part of why these people are able to do the re-export the way you...
Let me not even use coffee.
Right.
I'll come back to that example of coffee. Let me use bananas.
Yes.
Uganda, produces 9 million tons of bananas a year, something like that?
Well, the last time I had the figure, it was 3 million kilograms.
Oh, okay. I think it's about 9 million, if I'm not mistaken. 9 million. It's one of the largest
In the world.
In the world. Okay.
Yes.
I went to Dublin in 2014.
Yes.
To a company called Fives. Fives. In 2014, I visited one of the largest banana exporters in Ireland, in Dublin. Okay, they have a factory in Dublin. Okay,
do they have a banana plant?
There is no banana plantation in Dublin. You've been to Ireland. There is none.
None.
Okay, so they buy their bananas.
There's no Lusuku.
There is no Lusuku. Not at all. They buy their Bogoya from Ecuador, from Colombia, from Mexico.
Yes.
And what do?
Yes.
They buy it when it's unripened. So they buy it when it's still raw. Okay?
2 weeks. You bring it.
Even older.
They harvest.
They harvest it. They take it through a factory that cleans it and bags it. Then they put it through these shipping containers.
Yes.
And they put it on these shipping lines. And the ripening process takes place in transshipment. So, by the time the banana, which was loaded green from Ecuador, lands in the port of Dublin, it is yellow. The guys in Fives, what they do is sort out a banana which has blemishes, height, color, discoloration. It is a logistics center. They pick them, they refrigerate them, they pack them, they set them up for distribution to mainland England, mainland Britain, through the supermarket chain. Fives is about 100 years plus old. Doesn't own a single plantation of banana in Ireland. Doesn't grow a single banana. But their advantage and what they bring to the market is a first-class procurement, logistics, supply chain management. And that's the world we're competing with. So let me finish my coffee story.
Good.
Germany imports 1.1 million tons in 2021. Of that 1.1 million tons, it resells effectively green coffee to other European countries. Poland, which is near, Hungary, whatever, countries, suppliers, roasters in those countries who want to buy that green. Simultaneously, it sells 236,000 tons of roasted coffee. So it's the biggest importer of green coffee, 1.1 million tons. It's also the biggest exporter
of green coffee
to Europe and also roasted coffee. So how can you compete? How can you compete with a non-traditional, non-coffee growing country, but which has the most sophisticated modern logistic and supply infrastructure in the heartland of Europe. From Uganda, let me add on the logistics, is very important. It will take us, what?
2 weeks.
35 days, 40 days from Kampala to Rotterdam.
First leave Rotterdam.
Hamburg.
No, let's deal with what we know best. From here to Mombasa.
Okay. So 2-3 days here, get it sorted out. 2-3 days to Mombasa, depending on rail or road, whichever.
Let's use road because that one we know is the one most regular.
By the time you get to Mombasa,
how many days is it from Kampala? Let's assume the guys are done, the bags are on the track.
2 to 3 days.
They're in Mombasa.
In Mombasa. Then you get to wait for a vessel, you get onto the vessel. Essentially from Kampala to Hamburg is between 35 and 40 days. 35 to 40 days.
To get to Hamburg.
To get to Hamburg. Chongqing in southwest China.
Right.
To Hamburg is 18 days by rail. The China-European Railway. 18 days.
Let me ask you a reverse question. From here to Chongqing. Because I want to know.
It's like saying from here to southwest China. I mean,
yes,
it's probably the same.
It's probably
30, 40 days. I'm not quite sure.
So the guy who has green coffee in Hamburg is likely to deliver it to Chongqing faster than you are likely to take it from here to China.
And he's able to deliver it to France, he's able to deliver it to Poland, he's able to deliver it to Hungary, he's able to deliver it to Bulgaria, he's able to deliver it to Austria, he's able to deliver it to France before you can even put your coffee on the vessel.
You haven't even talked about Scandinavia.
Scandinavian countries. So Germany is importing all this green. Part of that green it is re-exporting because of its first-class logistics. The other green it is roasting and converting into instant and selling globally, and the rest it's consuming.
You talk to me, you've talked about the logistics. Talk to me about their advantage in financing.
Of course, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what's the cost of capital in Germany? You know, what's the cost of capital? I mean, availability of capital, availability of options, debt, investments, equity, the stock exchange.
I was talking to a young man who is just gone into the coffee trading business. Nothing big, a container or two here. And he said, look, when I go to the bank to get my trade financing, it's 26% plus a mortgage. In other words, they take my house as security and have to sign off many things. I'm playing in the same market with Neumann, who all they have to do is issue Stanbic with a letter of comfort, and they'll get it at 3%. Just talk to me about what that means for our ability to play, because you've explained what we're up against in terms of logistics. How about even in terms of the ability to finance this competition?
Let me give you a personal story. When I first got my first order for Tesco, and remember, Robert, it's a long time, you know, it's about 20 years ago. Huh?
Yes.
I first got my first order from Tesco. I went to a bank which shall remain unnamed and said, you know what? I have an order. Can you finance this invoice? And you know, at that stage, people thought this is a crazy idea. Who's adding value? What's this nonsense Rugasira is talking? Who does he think he is? No one has done it. You know, all that, the usual. So they said, you know, we might consider it if you can get us a letter of comfort from Tesco. Let them write to us. This is a local Ugandan bank. They want a letter
from Tesco,
from the MD
of Tesco.
I told them that Tesco's turnover is probably bigger than the GDP
of Uganda.
So it's very difficult, sir, to get that letter from. I can't even approach that
the
man.
guy.
I'm dealing with
the sales rep.
The buyers here. Now, that's some of the the challenges, SMEs are facing. A mismatch between the capital that they really need, which is long-term, which is patient, the capital which is available, and the business that they're doing. Coffee is a cash business.
100%.
You buy the coffee, you pay for
the
it
farmer immediately.
Okay.
No discussions.
No, there's no discussion. So you have to front that cash, okay? Then you have to do the logistics and get that coffee bagged and go through all the compliance loops and get that coffee exported. So it will get to a buyer in 40 days? I mean, that's even assuming that you have a ready buyer and you're able to supply immediately, okay? That time, that money is ticking. Interest is ticking. Do you even have a buyer who will pay you immediately? Maybe not. If you are paid upon arrival of that container at the destination, I mean, that is financing plus the season of procurement, plus preparing the coffee, plus shipping it, plus getting it to the buyer, and then you are paid. How long is that?
Like 105 days.
So
and the interest on the money that you've borrowed is ticking.
And then step back. What is the profitability on that transaction? So if the interest is 26%, and let's say you need it for 6 months, so that's 12 point something percent. Is that the profit you're making on top of all these other things you have to spend? So without cheap, affordable, long-term capital, you can't stay in the market. I remember we sent a container of finished coffee from here. Then some Somali guys hit the thing in on the seas, and that ship or something, there was a problem with pirates or something with the ship, so it had to dock somewhere and there were issues. Another time, a container, the ship containers caught fire. Some of the containers on the ship caught fire. And now you're explaining to buyers, it's coming. Sorry, and we're going to Felixstowe in the UK. Now, all that time, and you have gone to these non-formal lenders, who are charging interest by the week. There is a mismatch. There is a fundamental structural mismatch between the funding and the capital our SMEs need, what is available in the market. Look at agriculture. You know the data.
Yes.
How much private sector credit goes to agriculture? 10%?
Yeah, it's not much.
10%? So 10% of private sector credit goes into the agricultural sector, a sector which employs 70% of the working population, which contributes 24% to GDP, and which is funded by what? 2% of the budget? 1.6 trillion? I mean, how does it add up? 70% of employable workforce
is in a sector that is completely not funding.
24% contribution to GDP, 2.2% of your budget. Now, how have guys done it? How have these other guys done it? Okay.
Yes.
And I think this is a question you've always asked, which is where does our hope lie?
Exactly.
I think there are about 5 examples, I would say. Number one, the countries that seem to be successful are those that have developed a very strong domestic market.
Okay.
Ethiopia, for example, consumes 50% plus of their own
coffee. The interesting thing about Ethiopia is that they actually have a quota. If it was free market forces, they would probably go up to 70% consumption.
Exactly. Yeah. Brazil, 48%.
Yes.
Colombia, 30%. Even Vietnam, about 10%. Indonesia, I mean, they already have a robust domestic market,
which can underwrite the price.
Now look at a country like Colombia. They consume 30%. In 1927, they created their, Federación Nacional de Cafeteros, whatever. Federation of National Coffee.
Yes.
That looks after 500,000 coffee farmers.
Yes.
You know their national brand, Juan Valdez, the guy
Yes,
with
yes,
the hat.
with the
Huh?
hat. Yes.
I used to visit supermarkets with those guys, the Juan Valdez representatives.
Yes.
So here you are. Who are you? Andrew said, which is your company? Who are you? Where are you from? And then next to me in the queue to meet the same buyer is a Colombian representative of Juan Valdez, a national iconic brand, which is known, and they're bringing their quality coffee to European shelves. So an organized structure that does the things that you're always talking about, Robert: training, quality, value, trade development.
Yes.
How do you go and present your product in a workshop, in a conference, in a trade show?
When we were arguing about the departure from the International Coffee Organization.
Yes.
So one of the people I was talking to, he told me, Robert, the Brazilians and the Colombians prepare for 3 months for the ICO meetings. They have a delegation for each committee, and they come and stay for the ICO meetings for 2 weeks. The Ugandan delegation has 3 people who go for a week and attend only the plenary and leave. And normally, if there are more than 3, they will have 2 ministers who are totally clueless about what's happening. So the kind of investment you're describing, what goes into it in terms of institutional capacity to do what you're talking about?
It's the same problem that the Scandinavians had with their pork or beef market.
Mm-hmm.
They had to come together and organize the Danes under an umbrella organization.
Yes.
Because numbers matter and aggregation is important. When you come together, your interests are better represented because you have a bigger voice.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a bigger voice, you can demand more resources
Yes.
from the government. Or what Colombia did, what Ethiopia has done, is to go to the commodity buyer, the coffee buyers, and say, excuse me, this is an origin coffee, okay?
Yes.
So we are going to demand a premium.
Yes.
Do you remember that big fight that Ethiopia had with Starbucks?
Sidama Coffee.
Sidama Coffee?
Yes.
Sidamo Coffee?
Yes.
Until Starbucks representatives had to come
Yes.
to Addis,
Yes.
sit with late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi,
Yes.
and eventually work out something.
Yes.
A negotiation that recognized that coffee and its heritage and its provenance in Ethiopia. The Colombians have done the same. They call it original product identification, something.
Yes.
Which carries a premium with it. Now, if you don't have a voice that can articulate that, a voice of the people in the industry, not bureaucrats,
Yes.
not people on per diems,
No.
not people who have no interest, not a team of people who fly into these negotiations and none of them has a single acre of coffee, but a representation of these farmers. Brazil has it, Secafa.
Yes.
All these countries have these people. And the reason they have it is because they recognize that as individual smallholder farmers, they stand no chance, both in terms of competing, in terms of improving their quality, controlling the technical aspects and inputs on their gardens, and the rest of it that leads into the whole supply chain of coffee and the value addition. Let me give you a story about the implication of this. And in a sense, our experience taught us many lessons. And that's really one of the things that led me to even write the book.
Yes.
In 2006, I got the opportunity of getting the email address of the chief operating officer of Starbucks.
Wow.
Okay? So I drafted this email. It must have taken me, I don't know how many hours. Edit, change, course, cancel, edit. I'm so and so. We have this coffee. We've launched it in the UK. Blah, blah, blah. Would love to supply Starbucks. Would love to give us an opportunity. We're working with thousands of farmers. and I pressed send, and it went to him. He wrote back at that time with one line and said, "Dear Andrew, thank you for reaching out to us. We don't think that Ugandan coffee is at the stage that would interest Starbucks to come in and buy it at this stage. We recognize the improvements that you're trying to make, but we don't think we are ready to make that commitment right now." Meaning I'm paraphrasing, the quality or where the product is right now is not yet there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, you're speaking to a small, literally irrelevant player if you compare to the industry. But you're communicating an industry-wide issue.
Yes.
It wasn't the organization of farmers. No, it was one individual.
Yes.
But I want to tell you, I thank God for time and patience that vindicates things even beyond your own ability to claim it.
Yes.
In 2023,
yes,
Starbucks came out with a Mount Renzori.
Yes.
You remember that product?
Yes. Yes.
Copper color.
Yes.
Mount Renzori washed Arabica.
Yes.
When we went to Kasese in 2004.
Yeah. I remember you talking about climate.
There was no washed coffee coming out.
There was no washing station.
There was no washing station. We had to go to Bulucheke
to wash.
No, in Bududa, to get a gentleman called John Namisi and ask him to come and help us. Because one of my staff was from Bududa.
Yes.
So he said, I know a muzei called John Namisi. He has a small coffee shamba and he has a small palpa. We can talk to him. He's a very nice guy. So we went to Namisi's place. He showed us his garden. We looked around. We saw what coffee was. We said, we will not survive a day here. Let's go somewhere where we can actually add value. We can't compete here in Mbale. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the capital. We don't have the capability. We rather take some of this technology to Renzori. Convinced John. John came with us, and can I tell you something funny? When John used to get annoyed training the Wakonjo farmers, he would speak to them in Lumasaba, and
they would understand. Yeah, I know that.
I never ever understood how that would be.
It's one of to divert. It's one of the most fascinating cultural issues that the language, even the accentuation, is so similar because I speak Lumasaba, so I know.
Yes,
but even the cultural practices, circumcision, it's exactly the same. So I believe, Dr. Crispus Kionge is the one who says these guys broke off and went on their own to wherever it is. So I understand what it is. Yes.
So we took John.
Yeah.
And when we arrived in Kasese, together with the young local team, I remember there's a young lady called Janet, who was a petrol station attendant in Kasese town. There were she got some of her young friends, and this became my mobilization, my mobilization team.
Your logistics.
My first class logistics team went into the different sub-counties, Rukochi, Mahango, Ihandiro, all these places, and try to mobilize farmers. We are here, want to teach you how to process coffee better so you get a better price. They would look at us. So for months, we'd call for meetings, and grandmothers and grandkids would come to the meeting with one or two young guys. And then we said, this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. How do we get the community involved? Mm. So I learned my first lesson about local credibility as part of mobilization. So someone came and said, there's a Seventh-day Adventist elder in Mahango here. If you can talk to him, and he can actually mobilize for you. Go and convince him.
The early days of influencers.
That was my community influence. So we went, visited him, explained the concept, showed him what we were trying to do. And he said, okay, he was a teacher as well. So he said, okay, I understand. I'll call the meeting. We had gone to the radio, we'd done everything. People would not show up. The man called a meeting, and the next, I think, Sunday.
Yes.
Is it Sunday? Yeah.
Well, Saturday,
Yeah.
if it's
It wasn't Saturday. It was, I think the next day was Sunday afternoon. About 200 people came, able-bodied young men and serious people coming to listen to serious propositions.
Wow.
So I learned that we had no credibility. Our Mzee had credibility. So we enrolled him as one of our mobilizers. And that's how we went from 1 to the 17 sub-counties in Kasese, mobilizing in the village 50 people. 50 people would put their chairman, treasurer, vice, their agronomist, would train those 50 people, go to the next village, train another 50 people. We had got someone who used to work in coffee marketing board, Edirisa Sendagire, together with John Namisi, with their young team. And that's how I went from 50 to 50 to 200 to 1,000 to 2,000 to 14,000 farmers. We used to use Microsoft, what's this software? We used to, Microsoft Access. That's
yes.
the database. Would put your name, put your family, put how many trees you had. That was designed by a local guy, a guy we worked with called Tarsis, was an expert in database management. And in that rudimentary way, in that small office in Kasese town, that's how we mobilize these farmers. Why were they convinced? Because we shared with them
Yes.
a vision about how their condition
Could change
if they did things for themselves that would add value to their coffee and would get a better price in the market. I mean,
they saw personal benefit.
They saw personal benefit. They saw personal value.
Yes.
We point, so you, for example, you'd say, don't milk
the tree.
Because when you milk it, you take the green and the red and it affects the quality.
Yes.
Down the chain.
And
what you need to do is
destroys the tree.
Exactly. Destroys the tree. Pluck. Okay. Don't allow loan sharks to lend you money by sight. So they come and say, okay, we estimate this is about 2,000 kilos. I'll lend you this for school fees. And then they bring their people at harvest time and milk all the trees and take it. Value to them. Value to their families. And also opening their minds that what you're doing is adding value at the primary processing point.
Because that's how you create value for yourself.
That's how you create value for yourself. That's how then we could add on the circles. That's how you save money. Wow. The circles didn't even have an office, Robert. You know, they had a box. You know, these boxes with 3 padlocks. You know?
Yes, and
you don't trust each other.
And one official goes with one key.
Each one has a padlock. Chairman has a padlock, treasurer has a padlock,
and the secretary has a padlock.
Yeah, and they all take their keys, but they would put the money there.
Yeah.
Then you say, don't spend all the money. The young men don't marry a second wife because coffee harvest brings them.
Don't move from local brew to beer.
You know, and then we realized the problem is never the farmer.
Yes.
You know, when we said, how do you combat poaching in protected Queen Elizabeth National Park? Because it affects, you know, some of the certification. And it also affects your income generating opportunities. They formed a drama group that would celebrate the successes of their coffee season and harvest, and how growing coffee, harvesting it, selling it at a good price gives them more income than either the poaching and the protein that they were getting from the national park.
And if you have visitors coming to the national park, you have customers for your coffee.
Do you know what we found? 3,000 widows whose husbands have been killed in poaching, either by the animal, either by anti-poaching guards, accidents in the poaching system. 3,000 widows in that community.
Wow.
They said, we shall do the drama, we shall do the sensitization. You know, the notion that an African small-scale peasant farmer is waiting there to be saved by someone who's going to come and tell them that, oh, no,
messianic.
No.
These guys know what they're doing.
They need opportunities. They need opportunities. They need an infrastructure to be able to leverage their assets.
One of the most interesting things, Andrew, I guess, listening to that story, is part of your legacy in that area, is that Kasese farmers in particular are so religiously obsessed with their phone and tracking world prices. These are the small...
Yes.
So actually the traders today, the problem you've created for the traders is that by the time traders arrive to buy from them, the guys already know what's in New York and London. So they're using their phones.
And you know, Robert, the reality is we're owners of nothing. We're stewards of everything. Angels would come and go, how many farmers do you own? I don't own any farmers.
You don't own anyone.
We were privileged
Yes.
to steward an opportunity for a season.
Yeah.
Steward it, unlock a potential opportunity, experiment something, and then release it. It flourishes. Now, visiting some of these farmers, when we first met them, they had modern water houses. Today they have structures, they have pickups. They're calling me, asking me for jobs for their graduate children,
Whom they've educated.
or marriages. Their children, their daughters getting married, come to our wedding. My daughter's finished Chambogo, my daughter's finished Makerere. And people don't even need to be told how they can improve their life. They already know. They just need to be facilitated.
Look, I mean, the fact that a guy can walk away with 1.5 million shillings in cash by just looking at his trees has a very powerful... So I want to go back to the issue you raised earlier, the one I had asked you to pack, but I want to bring it through a story that a mutual friend of ours told me, and he unfortunately since passed on. So Mwambu, I was talking to Mwambu, and he said to me when he was doing his Carico coffee business, he went to try and get shelf space.
Yeah.
I know you're laughing, but this story has to be told. So he goes to Pick and Pay, and after long negotiations, they agree. And I'll never forget, because he told me, he said they gave him conditions. He had to have 1 month's stock in every Pick and Pay outlet in South Africa. At least all the major cities. We're talking Bloemfontein, where, North, everywhere. You know how vast South Africa is. In the supermarkets, he had to have shelf managers. Then he had to have 3 months supply at a warehouse in one of the 2 big cities, either Joburg or Cape Town. 3 months supply for all their outlets. And then he had to show them that he had 6 months worth of coffee on the high seas coming to Durban. And he said the thing that forced him out of that contract wasn't even all those conditions. It was the cost of packaging to be able to put this coffee on the shelf. Which takes me back to the issue that you're talking about, the sheer challenge that we face taking on these people in the ready to drink or the secondary processing. I prefer to call it secondary processing because somehow this value addition phrase has been used to make people who are not in processing appear as if they don't add any value to the and yet actually if at the primary level you don't have valuable coffee, you're not going to produce anything good. So just take me through that. What is it that we face? You are at the front line. You're actually not even the front line. You are the trailblazer. You broke the ground of this whole so-called value addition. You tell us, what is it like?
Robert, what's value addition?
Thank you very much. Value addition is...
I mean, really, I mean, we use that word value addition, you know? And can you talk about value addition without talking about market access? You can put 500 roasters in Kampala here.
Yes.
We're the what? We're the 6th largest producer of coffee now?
Actually, let's not go very far. We actually have 45 roasters.
45 roasters.
In Kampala.
Okay.
Just don't know, I'm just saying, already as things are, as a reality, we already have 45.
Okay. What does that mean? Does that translate that we will have more product representation, our coffee will be in the international market? Is that what it means? Let's say we double it from 45 to 90.
Let's even add another 10 and 100.
Yeah, let's say we have 100 rosters of different sizes.
Yes.
Germany has 1,600. We have 100 rosters.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean that this coffee will be able to penetrate markets in Europe and America and sit on the shelf? In 2005, we celebrated when we launched our coffee. Oh, the first African-owned coffee brand on the European shelf. But it was sad that why would the origin of Robusta coffee
in the
world, why in 2005 would we be the first one on the shelf? Geno Saleh had tried it in, I think, Denmark.
Yes. Copenhagen.
I mean, he understands the story.
Yeah, the marketing guy asked him for $5 million.
Now, at that time, to be the first on the shelf means there's something wrong. There's a structural issue there.
Yes.
And even after that, our own experience that lasted a few years.
Yes.
There hasn't been a change. When you go to these supermarkets, you don't find African-owned, roasted at source coffees on the shelf. It is just too difficult. Now, why is it?
Exactly.
Ask me that question.
Actually, both why and how.
The first one we talked about.
Yes.
You have a logistics problem.
Yeah.
You either don't have efficient logistics to get the product to market in a just-in-time, which means you get it there quickly. If it is roasted and ground and it's still fresh, because you're competing with people who are roasting in the market.
They're there.
Okay. So a roaster in London has green coffee from Uganda.
Yes.
You take the green coffee from Uganda and roast it in Kampala.
Yes.
Okay. Now you're both going to compete. You send yours by what? By ship.
By Uganda Airlines.
Uganda Airlines might be too expensive for you.
I just wanted to point that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
But let's assume it takes either the 30 days by sea or it takes
40.
40 days by sea. It takes 3 to 4 days by air.
Yeah.
You're going to compete with this roaster in London who's got an infrastructure, he's got marketing, he's got vehicles that can deliver the product to the clients.
Yes.
You've got an ability, you are unable to compete him at the same level. His advantages, the capital he has access to, the information he has access to, the infrastructure he has access to, the support team he has access to. That's a problem I had. And I would fly in, I would negotiate, I would bring samples, I would supply, I would fly out. No office, no marketeers, no big marketing spend. People used to laugh at me and said, oh, today we saw you on BBC. Oh, tomorrow we saw you on CNN. Of course, that's the only marketing I could do. My voice and my presence, that's the only way I could go.
And you're not even targeted because you are generally
you are
broadcasting.
Yes, exactly.
This guy has a marketing, he has repeat customers. He has a tradition. People have been coming to buy from him for years.
So now, and when on the shelf, you start competing for the share of space. So others who are in the market, talking to the supplier every day, are saying, why is this brand on the shelf? We can take up that space. We have a promotional budget. We can give rebates. We can give discounts. We can do promotions at Christmas. We can do promotions at Easter.
They're also having customer, they talk to them and they get immediate feedback.
So this feel-good factor of Andrew's guilt, making them feel guilty, they need to support Africa, they need to do all these things.
Fair trade.
It has a shelf life. Eventually, the hardcore, commercial, structural realities kick in. Can you supply this product consistently, on time, the volumes we want, availability of stock, buffer stock on the sea, all this? Like the story with our brother. That's what happened with Carrico Coffee. That's what happens. Do you have the financing to be able to sustain product in store, product in the warehouse, product on the seas, product at source. Do you have that?
You know, something else Mwambu told me, just a simple thing. Do you have enough forklifts? Forklifts. I'd never even thought about it. Which can handle the volumes of roasted material that you're talking about in the manner in which consumers.
So at the end of the day, you're going to still face that brick wall of logistics,
Yes.
supply chain,
Yes.
capital.
Yes.
The notion of value addition stops being just that I am roasting at source.
And I want to add another dimension which I would like you to talk to. The fact of unique consumer tastes.
Yeah.
Why don't you just talk to that as well?
Instant coffee was created in the Second World War. The US Army needed
for the soldiers.
Yeah, for the soldiers, so they could have access to the coffee quickly. Just put water in it. And over the last, 80 years, you know, people like Nestle and Dow Egberts and Sara Lee and Procter & Gamble and all these guys have been defining the palette for instant coffee. So every time I would do a tasting in a supermarket in the UK to a British housewife, I am trying to get her to transition from one taste profile to another. Mine might be better. Mine might have superior coffee beans in it.
Yes.
But the taste profile that has been established in her palate
is the one
very difficult
to change.
Very difficult. You can change it, but you need to do a lot of experiential marketing. You need to do so many testing, what they call testing at supermarket entry points, getting the customer to try it, to compare it, that costs a lot of money. Let's
even first leave the money element. The physical presence you require to be in the market. There's one thing that I've come across, that as new markets, rather consumers, especially younger people now, who are taking on the coffee culture, the palate issue which you raised is that many of them are looking at unique experiences that are consistent. So if I get my coffee from a Costa or from a Starbucks at location X, I want to find that particular experience more consistently and every day. And that means that this guy wants his green beans to serve his customers in a particular way. Are we able from this distance to achieve that expectation of an increasingly sophisticated international market? And by the way, people, when they talk about China and Russia, they talk as if these markets don't have those sophistications, but they actually do. In fact, even more than the long-established markets. How do you confront that question?
I think you need, if there's a lesson, you need to learn where to fight your battle.
Wow.
I was in the coffee shop business.
Yes.
When I started 21 years ago, there were probably, 5?
No, there were 2.
There were 2? Okay. Our brother...
It was you and Stephen.
Stephen Banya, right?
It was you and Stephen. There weren't that many. It was you and Stephen.
Today, the estimate is 150?
Including our friend at the corner in Mbale, near Ashok Cinema. Oh yeah, then 1,000 cups came along. Yeah.
So today we have 150.
Yeah.
I saw, because when we left the business, we saw young people. So a young person would come into the coffee shop, he looked like a young man in his 20s with his girlfriend on his hand, and he would order in a loud voice, "Mpa espresso ya cappuccino." to impress his girlfriend. At first, I never understood what is a cappuccino ya espresso. So it didn't matter that he maybe didn't understand that particular thing, what an espresso cappuccino was, but he was identifying this cappuccino or this espresso thing
Yes.
as worthy of taking his girlfriend out for the evening.
A social statement.
That's there is hope. There is a hope to get a Gen Z who now has access to a wide variety of coffee establishments, an opportunity to try things that earlier generations didn't. We grew up in school, remember, Kawamera, you know, we grew up on
Elgonia.
Elgonia.
Green one and the beige one.
You know how we drink bushera and we say
Exactly.
vikanja.
Yes. You would put the coffee
You don't have the
ground.
vikanja proper. You would chew it at the end.
We didn't even have French presses. Now we have French presses.
So the opportunity is, all those things you're talking about, we can shape the palate, we can influence the palate in our fast growing domestic market. Yes, the share of throat, as people who are in the beverage industry research call it, what is a share? 50-something% is tea,
Yes.
beverage, and the rest are the sodas and whatever. The share is small.
Yes.
But it has potential. If you look at what the Chinese are doing, and if you can look at what the Colombians and the Brazilians and the Vietnamese are doing in China, they are playing the long game. They are flooding with coffee shops. They are setting up supply infrastructure. They are setting up logistics. They know that 1.3 billion people are going to drink coffee one day.
You know, the reason I'm laughing is there was an aspect of this that I had forgotten, the diplomatic aspect. So Brazil, one of the reasons, not the only reason, one of the reasons Brazil and Colombia were forced to do that is because they used to sell their coffee when they were in Brazil. And they would end up invariably with unscrupulous Chinese importers who would then refuse to pay because they would say, no, by the
From
time...
Macau and Hong Kong.
Those, So they said, no. We're going to set up in Shanghai and Beijing. So their first thing was, you come and buy from us in Shanghai and Beijing. So there they first mitigated the first element. But as you said, now they're going into... So I wanted to raise with you two issues that for me now become important. The first one is that long game. What kind of people, in terms of human resources, do you need as a country to be able to achieve that kind of long-term view and play the long game? So that's issue number one. But issue number two, I guess I'm bringing them because I don't want to forget them, but you can answer them, Matthew. One of the things about domestic consumption has to do with economic growth generally. Let's look back. We have a mutual friend who is in the poultry industry. It's only much later that people start to buy large amounts of dressed chicken. But that came with economic growth and affordability. So there are certain factors in the economy that need to happen for the local market or for the domestic market to be viable. Breweries used to complain about illicit brews and they wanted those things legislated against. But it's not going to happen by legislation. Eventually what has happened is those formerly illicit brews are now part of the manufacturing process. So the question is, to you now, I'm going to your other hat as an economist. What kind of domestic market needs to be? Because if you gave me examples, Ethiopia, you've given me examples, Colombia, these are all big economies. The example, Brazil makes aeroplanes, Colombia makes coffee machines, Vietnam has exploded, China. So what else, what should we do with our local market? What are the things that need to happen?
Those are very good and important questions, Robert.
So the human resource and then local.
The first one, you're doing it. You are the people today, this is your season. You're the people today articulating these issues. There is almost an activism about it. Not just the issues, but you are now practitioners. You sign off as a what? As a coffee farmer. You see, so that's a first step to being not just sensitive to the issue, but actually to being an industry player. So it is to galvanize like-minded thinkers like you, but also like-minded practitioners. You posted something the other day and talked about, Ruggiero Farm and eating my beans and this. But
The interaction on that is shocking.
now, how many non-coffee farmers responded? You had a lot of coffee farmers, I'm sure, who responded, who were saying, oh, this is what we're seeing, this is what's happening. This is because they're like-minded. They have a vested interest. They have equity.
True.
In their operations.
Even the non-coffee farmers.
Even the non-coffee farmers.
I think sorry that I have to barge in, but one of the greatest benefits of the coffee debate in the last 2 years has been recruiting the rest of the country, especially young people, to understand why coffee is central to the economy. So in that sense, you feel that now Ugandans, everybody is saying, no, first wait, this coffee thing. So before, people were uninterested. Coffee exporter. But now you have that level, even from non-coffee actors. Yeah.
I think you can build on that because not only do you have a new kind of stakeholder, but you have a new communication infrastructure where you can leverage information, mobilize people. You have social media, you have Twitter, the stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's an important and influential infrastructure to change minds, to galvanize minds, to shape minds, and to also influence and create opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think the people, the kind of people are already in place.
Yeah.
That's the first question. The second one is, how are markets created? We don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, I will only supply to a market that exists. I mean, many times you create the market. Who asked for an Apple 13? Who asked for a Samsung 22? As a pioneer, that's what entrepreneurs are.
Yeah.
Schumpeter says that in a society, 4% are entrepreneurs, 10% are pretenders, and the rest are people who are employed. It's true. It's true. Only 4%, only those 4 who are willing to make mistake upon mistake upon mistake, to risk everything.
Yes.
In order to pursue this thing that's in them, because it's a design issue.
Yes.
And they create the mission. But let me tell you about markets.
Yeah.
Lagos, it's estimated that Lagos has 3,500 hotels.
Well, it's estimated there are 40 million people in Lagos.
Okay? So 3,500 hotels, 70,000 hotel rooms, estimated. Okay? There are 70,000 hotel rooms in Lagos, which to me says at least there are 70,000 opportunities for someone to have a cup of coffee in the morning. Now, we're doing some things right.
Yes.
We have an airline
which
flies to Lagos.
Yes.
Now, on top of that,
Yes.
can you build an engagement, a bilateral engagement? Can you build a market penetration? Now, Lagos, they don't drink coffee so much. They drink tea. They're like us here.
Yes.
But it is a beginning. It's like the Chinese situation with Brazilian and Colombian and Vietnamese coffee. People are not building for tomorrow. There's no short-term solution.
No.
People are building an infrastructure for the future so that in the next 5 to 10 years, to 20 years, Nigerians, as they grow in their consumption of coffee, will be drinking Ugandan coffee. I don't think the traditional markets will do it. How do you penetrate the US market in a serious way? The other day, Nestle, with their Nespresso pods, devised a marketing strategy to penetrate deeper in the US. And they did a partnership with Starbucks. Okay? I think it's Starbucks that did the deal with Nestle because they realized that they could leverage their distribution more widely by partnering with someone who's a competitor. Do you see that level of sophistication?
Yes.
Starbucks partners with Nestle. Your Nespresso pods want to penetrate residential customers' in-home consumption. Starbucks were there. You can ride on our infrastructure, and we shall take a margin on whatever product. I mean, that's a sophisticated level. How do you penetrate that?
And we shall protect our market from intruders.
So,
Wow.
the answer to your question is this this mentality of thinking that the traditional markets are Europe and America. I mean, the cost of getting market share in the UK or Scandinavia or the EU, you just cannot. In America, you can go into you can do a partnership. I did a partnership once with a church network, Church of God in Christ. They have, I don't know, 15, 20,000 churches, and it was a well-meaning, great idea. Can we supply their church patrons this Ugandan coffee? But that involved an infrastructure of vending machines in every church foyer, etc., etc. We launched in Myers, Midwestern supermarket chain in the Midwest. It's Indiana, Chicago area. Okay, big launch, big distribution, whatever. Sustainability was a problem. How do you, again, back to the question of marketing, back to the question of supply chain, back to the question of logistics. Goodwill and to be well-meaning is insufficient.
Yes.
We need to look inward on the continent. We have AFTA now. We have, 3.4 trillion economy, they say, potentially. We start building today. We start creating programs that point people. If you look at Colombia and Brazil and Ethiopia, there is a national affinity to coffee.
Yes.
Coffee
not
is
just affinity, ownership.
Ownership, culture, you're right, that's a correct word. Ownership. They own it. This is a treasure of the nation.
Treasure.
National treasure. I mean, really, tell me why the Vietnamese drink 10% of their own Robusta coffee.
You see, you need to get to a point where even as a farmer, the community will not allow you to mishandle your crop.
Exactly. We produce, I learned being in Kasese, in Bundibujo, we produce what? 22,000 tons of cocoa. When I started the chocolate project, that one took off for 6 months, I think. So I went to Holland.
I ate some of that.
You ate some of that,
yeah?
Again, sustain. So we were trying to see how we could build a chocolate factory here. So we found the cocoa we have in Bundibujo has a high butterfat content. It's excellent, actually, in terms of chocolate making. So we went found a chocolatier in the Netherlands, in Holland. They said they could buy some of this cocoa, make it there to pilot as we raised the capital to set up a chocolate factory here. And so we did that with a couple of containers. The logistics of getting the cocoa to Amsterdam, getting them to produce the chocolate, bringing back a finished product through Mombasa, the temperature control that you need for the chocolate not to melt, etc., etc. You can do it as a cottage industry. There's some people doing it here.
Yeah.
But to be able to do it at scale,
where
and to have an
we're
impact,
talking industrial
scale, for a product that you have real value. I mean, that this cocoa is really good, and you have sufficient volumes to make a difference. That's going to take some real committed interventions. It's going to take some real committed long-term thinking. It's going to take real industry-based long-term thinking where you say, we're going to put the infrastructure. Maybe we shall put a chocolate making factory and invite 10 brand owners to come and process their chocolate here. That's how the Europeans are. Most of the brands that you see on the shelf don't even own a single factory.
They're just, what they call it, packaging something. That kind of, the factories are set up by people, contract
packaging. When you go to Tesco, Sainsbury's or Waitrose today, or any supermarket, 40% of the coffee shelf is owned brands. So in-house. It's owned in-house, owned by the supermarket. Does the supermarket have a single roastery? Do they have a single instant factory? No. They have contracted someone to pack their coffee according to their standards and put their label there.
and send it to them.
Uh-huh.
So all of this other noise is happening in Bangladesh, in India, in Ecuador.
Uh-huh. So I learned that at the time when we first set up the roastery, that the roastery had huge capacity, which I couldn't fulfill.
Yeah.
Trying to attract other coffee to come and roast there was alien. Everyone wants to do their own roastery. Why do you have 45 roasters here? Explain to me why.
You're all doing small.
You know what? You don't need to have. There's a roastery in Namamve, I think.
Yes.
Owned by who runs it?
KCL, I think.
No. The guys in Namamve Industrial Park. It's part of these guys who have. They have a big roastery. That's where.
Great Lakes.
Not Great Lakes. Yeah. In Namamve, actually.
Yeah, I know the Namamve one. I just can't remember the name.
So those guys seem to have big capacity. You invite 10 brand owners.
Yes. I want to grow my trees.
Exactly.
Guarantee a certain profile of my coffee. I come to you, you process it for me, I pay you an amount. I don't want to pay electricity bills, I don't know what. So that's where so I'm going to tell you what, talking about marketing, one of my farm workers, he had greater wisdom than me. You know what he told me? He said, sir, if we're struggling like this, why don't we roast, grind, put in simple polythene bags and sell in the small local shops.
Yeah.
And then he told me at all these transit points in the trading centers, people who drive, who are moving, they take a lot of coffee to stay awake.
Yes.
So that's a market that nobody is paying attention to in terms of processing and supplying. So look, I really want to start to bring this home. Let's land it. If God arrived today and said,
he arrived already.
Yeah, so we're here now.
God's with us.
Yes, and he says, Andrew, I took you through this experience. Please tell Ugandans what would be the best approach to mitigate the problems of price volatility and commodities that we're caught up in. You know, that's the way you did the work in Renzori. How do you improve us from there? But also, how do we enter into secondary processing, auxiliary products, and how do you carry the whole sector forward? And he's given you full authority. This is divine intervention. Help my people, the way he told Moses. You help us.
Well, first God would tell me that I will evaluate your performance in your own mission and how you stewarded your business.
Yes.
I have equipped the next generation with gifts and talents and treasures to pursue their mission. So that's the first thing. He wouldn't use me. We share our testimonies. Like Paul says, you know, our journey, our life is an epistle written on the hearts of men, that they may be encouraged. I'm just an encourager. I have no particular unique wisdom or clever ideas. It's a different generation. You're a different generation, Robert, of coffee practitioners.
Yes.
I share my story to celebrate the journey, but also to hopefully encourage others. But each generation, as we both know, according to Fanon, has its own historical mission.
Yes.
And they must work it out. But what we can say is, what are the big macro things that we need to be thinking about? One, at a policy level, we need to move away from a small group of ministry and related organization officials designing very good policies on paper that fail to execute and deliver the outcomes we're looking for.
Right.
We need to expand that community to involve practitioners and those who are in the field. That's very important, Robert. Part of the challenge we have here in this country and in many other countries is those who design policy those who shape policy, however well-meaning and however conceptually attractive that policy is, it lacks this huge input of those whose daily lives are in the field doing that business.
Yes.
So I think a bit of humility to open the conversation, not just to say, manufacturers, come and we hear your views. Farmers
have an established
you have a template. You have a template, you have the policy framework, you have the guidelines, there is the English which excludes many people, and that's how we proceed. And then we wonder, why aren't we getting the transformation and impact in the sector? Yeah. So at a policy level, expand that.
Yeah.
Secondly, we don't have to invent new things. We have seen what has worked in those economies we look to as advanced and modern. That's what the Asians did. What did the Asian economies do? They just did what the Western developed countries did, but just much faster. They took rural labor into the cities, into manufacturing jobs, released land in agriculture to be modernized and consolidated. As labor came into the manufacturing sector, it needed food. So the land was released for large-scale mechanized farming to produce food for this growing urban manufacturing labor force.
Who are earning an income and
affording the food, producing sophisticated goods that would be exported. That's why today South Koreans will own a Samsung phone, a Daewoo car, a Hyundai car, an LG TV, produced in South Korea, and bought by their own people. Japan the same. So I don't know if we need to invent anything. What is, they call it African solutions to African problems. African solutions, there are principles, the economic principles. You have to follow them. If you don't have the ports, if you don't have the roads, if you don't have the infrastructure, if you have delays, you will not get products to market, you will not be competitive.
And if the quality of your people.
Look at the Ethiopians and their airline.
Oh my God.
You know, you build such an infrastructure that even when a shock like COVID comes, you're able to convert capacity.
Pivot immediately.
So there are fundamentals, supply chain and logistics. Once you have addressed those, you have to address the issue of capital.
Yes.
That one, they're more smarter, wiser financial gurus who can do an engineering on that. How do you get appropriate capital products to the producers of the agricultural products you want to be competitive and you want to deliver to the market? How do you create financial products for those who are in manufacturing and value addition so they can produce products priced competitively and sustainably to get them to the market? How do you create products for those in the space of branding, strategic promotion, trade development, those in the knowledge and information space, to be able to take all those together and create space in the market, create differentiation, create leverage? Someone comes from the US and says, there's an opportunity for the Coffee Association that's having a trade show. Guys, this is what we do. And the Kenyans have done that. When you see the Kenyan performances at trade show, it's excellent. It's competitive. That's what you need, the information and knowledge space. And then lastly, I think, is organizationally, as we talked in the beginning. How do these stakeholders organize themselves around their interests and their stake to be able to engage for the improvement of their sector, their industry? Is it coffee farmers? Is it cocoa farmers? How do they have conversations around grants and capital allocation and investments in their space and infrastructure and power lines and roads to the source and trade development opportunities and bilateral discussions that will enhance and allow their products to get to those markets? My submission is those would be the four, and they can be done already because you have a government that has resources, you have a government with people with measures of knowledge, basically, that can execute on that. They need to be more inclusive. They need to listen to other voices. They need to understand what is it like to actually try and penetrate this market. What's the reality of that? And what then can we do? A conversation around shared and collective interests, because that's how the Brazilians did it with CECAFA, that's how the Colombians did it with their federation, that's how the Indonesians have done it, that's how the Ethiopians have done it with the Coffee and Tea Authority, that's how the Vietnamese have done it. We can't invent anything new. It's all there through experiences that we've seen others who have succeeded do.
Mr. Andrew Rugasira, thank you very much for your time, but most importantly, for your knowledge. And what I will only say to the Ugandans is that they can only pay you back by praying for you.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's been a pleasure being with you and having this conversation. God bless you.
Thank you, and good night.